Hola, ¿qué tal? Buenas noches. Esperamos que nos estén escuchando. Hola, hola, un saludo para todos. Esta noche tenemos una invitada especial, la doctora Archana Patil de la India. Hello, doctor. Can you hear me? I not hear you. Let me check. Let me check, please. Doctor Archana, can you unmute your microphone?
Yeah.
Okay. I hear you fine.
Yeah. Pretty fine.
Okay. Estamos iniciando esta transmisión el día de hoy. I will start this transmission live with Archana Patil from India. She shared a presentation Doctor in Fetal Medicine and Restriction Growth. Esperamos que sea una plática de agrado para todos. Voy a mover la cámara. Para todos, que sea una plática de agrado. Y Ricardo de la Cruz, no sé por qué no tiene audio, no pagó sus monedas. Ya tienes audio, ya te escucho.
¿Se me escucha?
Ya.
Oh, qué bueno, qué bueno. How are you, Dr. Archana Patil? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Entonces, queridísimos terrícolas, tenemos el gusto de tener a nuestra queridísima Archana Patil from India, quien nos va a dar una gran charla en estos momentos. Todos le vamos a sacar mucho provecho. Estamos muy agradecidos, muy felices. We are so happy to get here to Archana Patil right now. So Archana Patil, the stage is yours.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Bueno, tenemos a la doctora con nosotros en vivo esta noche. Ella es médico ginecóloga con estudios en medicina fetal de la India. Ella participa y consulta en algunos hospitales de la India. She is Archana Patil, a gynecologist from India. She works in hospitals in India, and she has a fetal medicine doctor too. She consults for pregnancies, and we are very excited from here to your presentation for all in Ultrasonido para Todos. Thank you very much. Vamos a dar inicio y dejamos a la doctora Archana con su presentación y esperamos al final los comentarios o preguntas. ¿Alguna otra cosa, Ricardo, que le quiera decir a la doctora?
No, solamente decirle que we are so very happy and it's an honor to close our cycle of conference with her. It's very, very, very good for all of us.
Thanks a lot for the kind introduction, Dr. Kemis, and thanks for all the administrators for giving me this nice opportunity to present in this today's session. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you very much. And for you.
So
is happening?
Good evening to all the ultrasound members and happy 3rd anniversary to all of us. Today I am dealing with color Doppler in fetal growth restriction. When life feels black and white, make sure that you are dreaming color. That we use to diagnose the fetal growth restrictions on the gray color ultrasound by means of biometric centiles. We add color, that is the spectral Doppler, to follow and diagnose such fetuses and to yield a good perinatal outcome. So The Doppler effect, it is invented by Christian Doppler, who was an Austrian mathematician and physicist. Actually, on grayscale, there are two modalities, that is the B mode and the color Doppler. On B mode, we used to deal with the structural survey and biometric centile calculation of the fetus, while on Doppler, we are dealing with the blood flow in the form of spectral velocities. So, how it works? What is the basics behind this Doppler? The waves which are passing through the ultrasound probes, that is the beams, they are triggered by the RBCs which are moving inside the vessels and reflected back to the probe, and we calculate them as a indices or the impedance which is of the blood which is flowing through the blood vessels, and this principle we use to monitor such pregnancies. Actually, in Doppler per se, we are coming across two colors. One is blue and the other is red. So it doesn't mean that the blue color it represents veins and the red color represent artery. It depends on the probe placement. If the respective vessel, whether it's a vein or artery, the flow in that particular vessel, if it is coming towards the probe, it is represented by red color, and if the flow is moving away from the probe, it is represented by blue color. So how we identify the vessels? Because in FGR, we use the multivessel Doppler parameters to follow such fetuses. So we need to understand the waveforms of the vessels to calculate the pulsatility index, which is the commonest index we use according to the recent guidelines. We have to keep in mind that every vessel has its own signature, as like we have our own specific thumb impression. So here the vessel which is in the bottom of the graph, it is the vein. It is represented by the monophasic continuous forward flow, while the above parameter, it represents the arterial blood flow. It has a systole, a diastole, that means it is biphasic waveform. But in fetal circulation, some veins do have triphasic waveforms like ductus venosus, which we need to calculate in following such FGR fetuses. So this is the waveform. This is peak systolic velocity. This is the systole, and this is the diastole, and this is the mean. We need to understand these basics to calculate the SD, RI and PI indices. So everyone has one question in mind, that which indices are to be used when we are dealing with such FGR fetuses. Likewise, even today also people are doing SD ratio, RI and PI ratios to follow such FGR fetuses. But what the recent fetal medicine guidelines suggest, that we need to use the pulsatility index to follow such fetuses. Why? Because the pulsatility index, it has a correlation with the vascular impedance of the velocity, and as like refractory index, it doesn't approach the infinity in the absent or reverse diastolic values. Even we use this pulsatility index for veins as well. What are the advantages and limitations of using color Doppler in the FGR fetuses? So the advantages are, it is the non-invasive method, and right now we are using advanced modalities of the ultrasound machines which contain the Doppler facility. So it can be applied to the mass population to yield the results. And the advantage is, we can diagnose earlier, we can follow the pregnancies, and we can make the decision whether to deliver the baby or to continue the pregnancy. So limitations are, the PI is angle dependent, and the Dopplers are to be done by the trained and skilled personnel to yield a good outcome. It has its own artifacts. That's what it has to be done by the skilled and trained personnel so that we can manipulate those, overcome those, and yield a good output. And it has to be performed by following the ALARA principle, that is, as low as reasonably achievable. Defining terms. In short, we need to see what is FGR first. The fetal growth restrictions is the common obstetric problem, and who suggested that till the end of 2020, approximate 56% of the babies will be landed in the FGR. So, how it adversely affects the perinatal outcome. As birth weight reduces, the complications are going to be increased. So there is inverse relation in between birth rate and the complications. So to define the terms, nowadays we are classifying these fetuses with low potential to growth into small for gestational age and the fetal growth restrictions. The small for gestational age or the AGA fetuses, when we defined when the estimated fetal weight which falls at or below 10 centile for the period of gestation, and fetal growth restriction we define when the expected fetal weight falls less than third centile for the period of gestation. So these are some maternal and the fetal conditions which we are familiar with. We are associated with the fetal growth restriction. Likewise, it has influence of geographical, and it is also associated with multifactorial association. So according to the area or the geographic population, we need to define what are the factors which are responsible for the fetal growth restrictions, and we need to follow such pregnancies. And we also keep in mind that according to that masses who are at risk, only 10% babies will land in the fetal growth restriction. So what should be the protocol we need to follow accordingly? First and foremost thing is the gestational age should be confirmed and well defined. That's dating should be done, and preferably according to the ISWAC guidelines. What we use, the CRL is the gold standard for the dating purposes. So whenever you are going to define that the baby has fetal growth restrictions, we must have perfect dating done, and the early pregnancy ultrasound should be available with the mother. Then we need to calculate and measure these indices as BPD, head circumference, AC, and the FL. We need to plot in particular software. Then we need to calculate the centile, and after that, according to the Barcelona protocol, which we use since 2014, we need to classify those fetuses and we need to follow the pregnancies accordingly. So here you can see the growth chart. This represents the 5th centile, this is 50th centile, this is the 95th centile, which contains the estimated fetal weight of the baby. You can see that here how the fall occurs in the growth centile of the baby in case of FGR fetuses. So what is the pathophysiology behind the fetal growth restrictions? Why we are dealing with fetal growth restrictions? In real sense, if the fetal growth restriction, it is diagnosed before 32 weeks or up to 32 weeks, we term it as early FGR, and if it diagnosed after 32 weeks, we term it as late FGR, but it is out of scope of today's topic. So we are dealing with the basic pathophysiology irrespective of the type of FGR. So there are three phases in the development of fetal growth restrictions. One is the preclinical phase, in which there occurs the venous distribution, and which showed by the decrease in abdominal growth of the baby. So we'll notice a decrease in abdominal circumference of the fetus. The clinical phase, which is represented by decrease in the liver glycogen level, then there are arterial Doppler changes, and there is slowing of the fetal head circumference as brain switches the ketone bodies and lactate for the fuel purpose. The last phase of deterioration, where we need to concentrate on these babies because stillbirths and the deaths are very common in this phase. So which is represented by chronic hypoxia and acidosis. So now we are dealing with how to image the particular multivessels which we use in dealing with follow-up of these FGR fetuses. So we will see first the uterine artery Doppler, how to image the probe placement. It has to be placed particularly in third trimester. We need to place the probe in lower lateral quadrant of the abdomen by slight medial tilting, then go towards lateral aspect, and sample gate should be 1 centimeter below the crossover, because uterine arteries on ultrasound we identify by means of the external iliac artery crossover. So after that crossover, below the 1 centimeter point, we need to put our sample gate, and it should be depending upon the branching of the uterine arteries. Actually, whenever we sample the uterine artery, it should yield the peak systolic velocity of 60 centimeters per second. So when you put your probe on that particular point of time, and if you calculate the velocity by means of spectral Doppler, if it is coming more than 60, then you are sure that this is uterine artery. Then most of the times branching occurs after crossing over, but in few cases we can observe the branching before crossing as well. So we need to place our probe slightly downwards to image the uterine artery. So we need to repeat on both sides in the same manner as in advanced gestation in the term fetuses, because of dextroposition of the uterus. While imaging on the right side, we need to go slight laterally and slight medially towards the abdomen, but by practice we can achieve, or we can obtain easily and image the uterine artery Doppler. Only one pitfall in the uterine artery Doppler indices is the women which have congenital uterine anomalies. In those women, assessment of uterine artery Doppler indices and interpretation is unreliable, because studies are not available with the congenital uterine anomalies. What nomograms which are practicing today are based on only normal uterine studies. So this is uterine artery Doppler. You can see this is the uterine artery, only single vessel is saying, there is no aliasing. See how the sample gate is placed. It should be in the central. Size of the sample gate is 2 millimeters. And one thing we should keep in mind, that the waveforms which we obtained, it should be in the range of 3 to 10, so that we can calculate the indices and zoom it very nicely, so that you can visualize the particular vessel which we are imaging. We'll go forward with umbilical artery, how to image and calculate the indices. There is significant difference at the placental and fetal side of the umbilical artery indices. towards the abdominal cord insertion and towards the placental cord insertion, the umbilical artery indices are on higher side. That is, the PI is on higher side. So for the singleton pregnancies, what we use the free loop of cord for imaging the umbilical artery. But in twins, like, we are not certain about the free loop, it is of which twin, so we need to image at the umbilical cord insertion at the abdomen side. But in that sense, we need to remember that then we need to follow the different nomograms accordingly. Then for imaging the umbilical artery, same principle we need to apply. Zoom the particular vessel, adjust PRF, use sample size 2 mm, image the vessels, obtain the waveform, calculate and interpret. In first, there is the normal umbilical waveform pattern. Here it is represented by increased resistance in the umbilical artery waveform. It is coming as 1.54 and this particular image. After obtaining a waveform, we need to put it into the nomograms to calculate, and we need to see whether at what centile it is falling for that particular gestational age. That in third waveform, it is represented by absent end diastolic flow. When you are dealing with absent end diastolic flow, make sure that your ball motion filter, it should be at low indices. Most of the time, if you place your wall motion filter on the higher indices, you will not be getting the diastolic flow. So whenever you are coming across such situation, that is absent end diastolic flow in the umbilical artery, we need to see how is the wall motion filter on our ultrasound, and we need to adjust accordingly. We need to choose it low, and still if we are obtaining such waveforms, then we are sure that it is absent end diastolic flow. It is the fourth image, it is showing the reverse end diastolic flow. So the middle cerebral artery. For imaging the middle cerebral artery, we need to look for the axial section of the brain, including the thalami and the sphenoid bone wings. The color flow mapping to identify the circle of Willis and proximal portion of the middle cerebral artery, that is the 1/3 proximal portion of the middle cerebral artery, we need to image or we need to select to calculate the pulsatility index, because after that it decreases, the PI of the vessel decreases significantly. So we are not sure about our diagnosis, or we will false diagnose the condition. That's why the importance of imaging middle cerebral artery is one should image and calculate the PI in proximal third of the MCA. Again, we need to apply the same principle, but here one thing we need to take into consideration, most of the times if the baby is in breech position, because of the fetal movements or the breathing of the baby, we get false reading. In that sense, we need to wait a while, ask the woman to stay aside for say for 10 to 50 minutes, and then you can call upon the patient inside and remeasure the indices to check, and always make sure and take the readings thrice so that you are sure that your diagnosis is confirmed. So this is the middle cerebral artery waveform. Here it is towards the greater sphenoid, greater wing of sphenoid. Again, the sample gate of 2 mm. See, aliasing is not present, and these are the waveforms, and here is the calculation. Ductus venosus. Ductus venosus is an important venous structure which trigger the delivery of fetuses in low growth fetuses in early FGR. That is till 30 weeks of gestational age. The ductus venosus we will use to trigger the delivery. If we get the ductus venosus waveform in the form of increased pulsatility index before 34 weeks of gestational age, we need to deliver the baby. So what is the ductus venosus? It connects the intra-abdominal portion of the umbilical vein to left portion of the inferior vena cava. It is imaged either by the mid-sag section longitudinally or by the oblique transverse section in the AC plane. As I mentioned earlier, it has triphasic waveform and it represents the systole, diastole and the A wave. So we need to see what is the pulsatility index and how the A wave is in the waveforms, whether it is reversed or not. Small tips and tricks for measurement of ductus venosus. Guidelines suggest that we should take a sample gate of 2 millimeters, but my experience suggests that when we put 1 millimeter of sample gate, we'll get the definitive and accurate calculations of PI. Next thing is obtaining ductus venosus waveform is a little bit difficult as because when the baby moves or when the baby is in the phase of respiration, it was little bit difficult to image the ductus venosus. So what I suggest, whenever you are approaching towards the AC plane, when you measure the AC parameters, at that moment only, first of all, you take the ductus venosus Doppler so that other Dopplers you can obtain it easily and you can get ductus venosus easily as well. This is the AC waveform. This is the ductus venosus waveform, which is in the mid-size position I took in this image. See here the sample gate placement and these are the waveforms. So what we need to do that you can use the autotrace method for all the parameters like middle cerebral artery, umbilical artery and the uterine artery. But preferably for the ductus venosus, we need to use the manual trace to measure the PI. So once you done with your diagnosis, that you ascertain that the fetus which you are examining is having fetal growth restrictions, you obtained your color Doppler indices as well, and then how to proceed. That is, there is one pretty excellent protocol which is termed as Barcelona calculator, which we need to follow such pregnancies to yield a good perinatal outcome. So always we say that Google doctor, we are like very fussy about the patients. We are surfing the Google and training us or like advising us, but in terms of fetal growth restrictions, we need to take the help of Google doctor. Go to the Google, search Barcelona calculators, then in that calculators fetal medicine Barcelona, then if you select this one, you will get such indices. In these, if you want to see the Doppler nomograms, you can go by Doppler, and here is the fetal growth parameter calculator with the help of which you can calculate the stage of Barcelona protocol and how to follow the baby. So what is Barcelona protocol for FGR? It is represented by 1, 2, 3 and 4, that is 4 stages. So the first stage, it corresponds or the first stage is of very small estimated fetal weight or the moderate placental insufficiency, where the expected fetal weight falls less than third centile, or the estimated fetal weight less than 10 centile plus any of these criteria, we need to diagnose that the baby is in first stage. Actually, when we are going to apply this Barcelona protocol, we need to follow the fetuses to estimate the estimated fetal weight every 2 weeks, but we need to follow these 1, 2, 3, 4 stages for staging and how to follow the babies with multivessel fetal parameters. So when the baby fall in stage 1 Barcelona protocol, how to follow such babies? So we need to deliver such babies at 37 weeks of gestational age, and we need to induce the labor if Liker is optimum and the all conditions are optimized and favorable for the normal vaginal delivery. The second stage is severe placental insufficiency, which is represented by the absent end-diastolic flow in the umbilical artery. If we get such finding, how to follow such babies? We need to do multivessel Doppler twice a week. Such pregnancies should be delivered by 32 weeks and particularly by the cesarean section. As the baby we need to deliver at 32 weeks, make sure that one thing, we need to give the steroid cover for the lung maturity. The second thing, that if you are going to deliver the baby at 32 weeks of gestational age, we need to give Maxelf as well to reduce the bleeding tendencies in the baby. Then when the baby falls in the third stage, that is low suspicion of fetal acidosis, which is represented by the reverse diastolic flow in the umbilical artery or the DVPI more than 95th centile or absent diastolic flow in the ductus venosus. So how to follow this pregnancy? So we need to do the Doppler after 1 to 2 days, and if we confirm the parameters, then need to deliver such babies at 30 weeks of gestational age, again preferably by cesarean section with Maxelf and steroid. The fourth stage is high suspicion of fetal acidosis, which is represented by the reverse diastolic flow in the ductus venosus and the pathological CTG finding, that is particular in the form of early deceleration. So when we need to deliver these babies we need to deliver at 26 weeks of gestational age by means of a cesarean section. Again, we need to give Maxelf and steroid for the lung maturity for these babies. Again, what two things we need to consider is, one, we need to deliver such pregnancies at tertiary center level where the facility of level 3 NICU is present, because these babies have very low birth weight indices. So we need a high part of treatment modality available where we deliver those babies. So nowadays we are more dealing with the CPR, that is the cerebroplacental ratio. We need to understand what is the basic pathophysiology behind that and why we need to calculate CPR in the FGR fetuses and how to follow once the CPR is calculated. The CPR, why we get the, or why we calculate the cerebroplacental ratio, or how it changes, how it affects. Once there is increased venous vascular resistance, as in fetal growth restrictions, which causes elevation in the umbilical artery Doppler indices, which causes again decreased oxygen level and decrease in blood flow in the MCA and decrease in the cerebroplacental ratio. The cerebroplacental ratio is the pulsatility index of middle cerebral artery and the umbilical artery. It is usually constant in the last 10 weeks of the gestational age. Whenever it is low, that is less than 1, it is associated with increased mortality and morbidity. But as far as the cerebroplacental ratio is concerned, we need to consider it after 37 weeks of gestational age. One thing we need to remember that after 36 weeks of gestational age, the PI of the middle cerebral artery, it has physiological decrease. So we can get decreased CPR values after 36 weeks of gestational age. Likewise, if you obtain such low CPR, we need to follow that pregnancy after 1 week for the multivessel Doppler to calculate the CPR to take the decision of delivery, and we need to apply CTG to such fetuses to make the decision. So growth discordance in the twins, actually singleton pregnancies is the main topic and follow-up, but as fetal growth restriction in twins is also a little bit important, but it is a vast major topic. Would like to cover in the little bit basics of it in forthcoming few slides. So how we are going to calculate the growth discordance in twins. We need to use a specific formula for calculating the birth weight discordance in the twins, that is estimated fetal weight in large twins minus estimated fetal weight in smaller twin multiplied by 100 divided by estimated fetal weight in the larger twin. Depending upon the degree of discordance, we need to classify the fetuses into 2 groups, that is grade 1 and the grade 2. If the discordance it is falling in between 15 to 20%, we term it as grade 1, and if the discordance is more than or equal to 25%, we call it as grade 2. So Doppler in twins, most of the times we coming across the singleton pregnancies, but right now because of the use of ARTs, that is artificial reproductive techniques, we are coming across the multiple gestations as well. So we need to see how to do the Doppler, how to follow such pregnancies as well. There are different parameters or different physioanatomical differences in dichorionic and the monochorionic twins. So we need to follow accordingly. In case of dichorionic twins, the SFGR, if we are going to diagnose, we need to follow as like the singleton pregnancies, and most of the times reason is the unequal sharing of the placenta. But when we come across the monochorionic twin gestation, it is itself a big challenge to the obstetrician, where there is asymmetric distribution of the placenta, and the little more difficult thing is there is presence of the interfetal vascular anastomosis, and because of that we are getting the complications which are present in the monochorionic twin gestation. So they are at a high risk. So because of such factors, such monochorionic pregnancies, we need to follow every 2 weeks with estimated fetal weight, weekly Doppler in terms of umbilical artery and the middle cerebral artery, and trigger for delivery is the abnormal ductus venosus Doppler. So how is the prognosis and how we classify the fetuses? Like we in case of the DCDA twins, we use the Gratakov's protocol, which is based on umbilical artery forward flow, according to which we can grade the fetuses into 3 grades. First one is the positive endosteric flow, type 2 is absent endostic flow or the reverse endostic flow. Type 3 is cyclical or the intermittent endostic flow. So accordingly, the prognosis is there. In type 1, survival rate is pretty good. In type 2, there is increased risk of IOD up to 29%, and the neurodevelopmental delay in the other twin is 15%. In type 3, the unpredictable deaths are pretty common, and even there is larger, that is 20% neurological morbidity which is observed in the surviving large twin. So when we get such type of classification, so we need to justify and deliver accordingly. The MCDA twins, the SFGR management is pretty difficult because the monochorionic twin gestation itself is a challenge for us. So we need to overweigh, that is whether to continue the pregnancy or to take the risk to deliver the baby because of the prematurity. So we need to justify these parameters, and what we need to do is, if the fetuses are at less than 26 weeks, there is a risk of fetal demise of one twin is there in terms of monochorionic twins. So to protect the another twin or to salvage the another twin, we need to go for fetal selective feticide in terms to prevent the loss of other baby, because there are intercommunicating channels in the placenta as far as monochorionic twins are concerned. The management is pretty complex in the monochorionic twins. So, and it mandates the delivery, as I told earlier, at the tertiary center with level 3 NICU facility. Again, the trigger is Davy waveform and early delivery is mandatory. The references for my today's talk are the ISWAC guidelines and the Fetal Medicine Foundation guidelines to image the Doppler. Thank you for the patient listening, and lots of love given by the all members. And thank you for the coordinating team for giving me today's opportunity.
Bueno, nos ha presentado la doctora su presentación esta noche. Thank you, Dr. Archana Patil from India. The Doppler in pregnancy is very important to health of babies and mothers. It's a special issue in the pregnancy control. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bueno, la doctora nos acaba de presentar su tema, Doppler en el embarazo, en la gestación. Es un tema importante, ya que es un tópico que nos permite mantener la salud tanto de las madres como de los fetos. Es un tema bastante amplio y cada vaso que estudiamos requiere un sinnúmero de tiempo. Y bueno, esperamos, si hay alguna pregunta, hacerle la pregunta a la doctora. Voy a compartir un pequeño video igualmente para que vean cómo se ven las arterias. Vamos a hacerlo más grande aquí. ¿Cómo podemos hacer? No me da. Ok, bueno, vamos a ponerlo aquí. Voy a salir del audio. Aquí vemos una arteria uterina corriendo y cruzando de manera ficticia la arteria ilíaca, donde corregimos. Aquí es una arteria uterina vía endovaginal. Aquí estamos viendo la arteria, su medición. Aquí estamos viendo una arteria cerebral media, igual midiendo. Aquí vemos una arteria umbilical. Bueno, son ondas que ya conocemos todos. Son espectros importantes que tenemos que analizar. Y de esas estructuras, su entendimiento y su estudio depende de la salud de las mamás y de los bebés. I show the mini video about the artery, uterine artery, umbilical artery, cerebral media artery. I say it's a very special vessels to keep the health in the mother and the baby. It's a waveform that it's important note to have in mind, have the wave and study all days, all babies, all mothers. If you can say one comment, doctor.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for that visual videos.
I can hear you. Can you unmute your microphone?
Yeah, it's unmute. Am I audible now?
I not hear you. Okay. Can you mute your microphone again, please? No. I not hear you. Okay, again, please. Can you? Okay. Can you your microphone again, please?
Am I audible now?
No have audio from you.
What happened?
Okay, pasan cosas en las transmisiones en vivo. It's happens in a live transmissions, issues that are out of control. Okay, audio only. Volvemos a poner. Okay, can you speak, please?
Hello, am I audible?
No. Don't worry. Ok, vamos a ver si hay algunas preguntas en el auditorio. Hay... Ok. Audio. Estoy revisando aquí. Congratulations. Thank you. It's a great presentation. Thank you very much. Excellent presentation. Thank you very much. The sound is good. Thank you very much, doctor. Excellent presentation. Oh, many comments for you, doctor. Okay, you can speak it, a final comment. Congratulations. Thank you. Oh. You try to speak. The sound is good. vamos a despedir a la doctora. Si quieren dejar alguna pregunta o comentario dentro de la publicación, la doctora se va a mantener al tanto de las preguntas e iremos respondiendo. Es importante que todos entendamos la importancia del Doppler, tener buenas ondas para diagnóstico y que estas ondas las analicemos de manera adecuada, siempre usando una calculadora, siempre percentilando y siempre tomando información del paciente. Mantener a los bebés sanos depende muchas veces de los cálculos que hagamos en estos vasos. Agradecemos nueva cuenta a la doctora Archana Patil desde la India, que se tomó el tiempo. Son las 6 de la mañana para ella en la India. Tuvo que despertarse muy temprano para estar con nosotros, lo cual es bastante agradecido. Y estamos, muy contentos por que nos haya estado esta noche transmitiendo sus conocimientos. Si alguien tiene alguna duda o comentario final, quedará posteado también para que ella sepa. Thank you very much, doctor. Again, we are enjoying, we are excited from your presentation from India, from all the world, all the ultrasound world. It's a very important issue. It's many vessels to study. It's important all the time, percentile charts and use calculators. It's not enough to see the baby or to see the mother. Always is necessary study, check the vessel and percentile all the time. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot for this opportunity.
Estamos pendientes. Vamos a darle un aplauso virtual para la doctora. Agradecemos su presencia. Y see you the next time, doctor.
Definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Doctora Archana Patil, thanks for your presentation, and thanks Internet for making this meeting possible. This is the magic of Internet. I have to say that now we are sure that education have no borders anymore. Like John Lennon says, sometimes we imagine a world with no borders, living together in peace. Thanks a lot, Archana Patil.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks a lot for this opportunity.
Doctora Archana Patil, thanks for your presentation.
Oh my God.